Hi everyone, this is Ryan Hoyme, aka Massage Nerd, and today we have a special guest on tonight, Art Riggs. He's a certified advanced Rolfer who has been teaching bodywork primarily for massage therapists and physical therapists since 1988, both internationally and at the San Francisco School of Massage in U.S. Lately he has been conducting workshops at spas to expand their massage programs to include deep tissue and myofascial skills for therapeutic work. Art also is the author of a popular manual, Deep Tissue Massage, a visual guide to techniques, which has been translated into eight languages, and an 11-hour DVD series too. A lifetime of hard physical activity and high-level athletic pursuits include ultra-marathons led to him to bodywork, first as a graceful recipient and later as a student. The fulfillment he experienced in both receiving and performing bodywork led him away from his graduate studies in exercise physiology at the University of California, Berkeley, to a full-time career as a Rolfer and teacher. Art lives in Oakland, California, and his dog Sophie and his cat Dave, where he continues to pursue his primary passion of doing bodywork. Welcome tonight, Art.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Nice to be here.
Yep. So how did you get into Rolfing, though?
Oh, God. We've only got an hour, I suppose. Actually, I sort of stumbled into it from, luckily, having so many injuries from a lot of my athletic stuff and from some hard physical work when I was younger. And, I grew up in the Midwest, and we just nobody ever considered body work. So I was close to 40, and a friend suggested I try Rolfing, and I went for a free demo, and literally had less than 10 minutes work, and I felt better than I had with any of the chiropractic or osteopathic or some of the conventional Western medicine things. I went through the series, and I was going through sort of a career change type situations there, and I just said, well, let's try it. And it's just never looked back. I've been very lucky to have done that.
Did you get into massage then too, or just Rolfing?
Well, started out, I liked the Rolfing so much I wanted to get right into the Rolfing, but they required you to have a massage certification, which I think is great that they did do that. So you have a little bit of experience working with bodies. And so I got a massage certification and did just a little bit of massage, but only to sort of bide the time until I could get into the Rolf Institute. And then I had a great chance. I studied my first part of my training in Munich, Germany, which was my first time out of the United States, and then finished up and started working. And then just a little bit of the history probably in some of my surgeries. I've had a lot of knee surgeries, including finally knee replacements. I used to run ultra-marathons, 100-mile races and things like that. I knew a bunch of physical therapists who had treated me, and as soon as they knew I had some manual skills, I started working in a physical therapy clinic. And I sort of did that initially to just sort of get my hands on people starting a practice, but it was really great for me, and I think really shaped who I am in that I really got a lot of experience working with injuries. And that sort of got me away from just doing massage to relax people and Rolfing to go through the 10 series. And I think this has shaped me a lot. And it really, for me, I'm a sort of a problem-solving kind of guy. It's really fun to not do just a plain ritual. So I really love it when people come in, even if they're looking for relaxation massage or body work or even emotional or things like that. Almost everybody has something going on with their physical body. And it's really nice to it just gets you in a much closer situation with people to be discussing that with them and then start working on programs to work with that.
So you did have knee replacement then?
Oh, yeah. I had that
Okay.
about 6 years ago. And
Okay.
I had 5 prior surgeries. I had old football injuries, and as I say, I used to do a lot of running, a lot of basketball, and was putting in 100-mile weeks running for about 10 years, and other things that sort of indicated probably some great lack of mental stability. But they were fun when I was younger.
And you're totally back to normal, would you say, with your knees, or?
Oh, I'm so much better. I'm not a great fan of surgery. I mean, I think a lot of people jump to surgery without doing body work. And if I'd been doing body work along the way, I might not have had anything close to the problems I had. But I'm incredibly better after that. And I think sometimes some body workers need to realize that there's only so much we can do, and that not all surgery is bad. There's a website called Surgery Sucks, and sort of implying that anything with Western medicine is bad. And I think it was helpful for me to be in physical therapy and see, some other aspects, strengthening, flexibility exercises. I do a lot of work with my clients, referring them to yoga people, Feldenkrais people. One of my early teachers in Rolfing, I think, was really helpful for me. He said it's a fairly well-known saying that if you give a man a hammer, the whole world becomes a nail. And I think a lot of practitioners in various forms of body work and in Western medicine, whatever it is, they think theirs is the only answer. And I think having a great referral source in your practice always pays off.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and then do you have a full-time practice right now, or how many massages are you typically giving now a week? Or?
I'm keeping it down to, I try to go under 10 a week now, and I'm really enjoying it more. I spend a lot of time traveling. I do teach abroad. I'm leaving in 2 weeks for Taipei and for Japan to teach. So it's a little hard for me to get on a regular schedule because I'm often gone 3 weeks at a time. And then I do have a fair amount of time required with my internet business. I have a video and a book. And,
a few, yeah.
How's that for a plug?
Yeah. Can we see your DVDs there?
Well, I just happen to have them. So, let's see what it looks like. Here's the DVD set. Let's see, maybe I'll take it back a little bit. It's 7 DVDs. So they go all together, and that's the DVDs. And I did those because I did a book. Basically, when I was teaching, I noticed, and this is so important, I hope we get away from me and just get into to teaching and body work and things. One thing I notice when I teach, and I know you teach, is that students come in and they're really tense, and they try to get absolutely everything down in class. So that it's like capital. It's like they're taking money in and stuffing it in their pockets. And I found that they were often just noses down, scribbling in notebooks, trying to remember stuff. So I did a manual for the class, and then from there somebody talked to me about publishing it, and I did that. So that's sort of what got me started on this and the teaching. And so they're
perfect. Yep.
No need to talk about that anymore.
Yeah, but I got involved into books and everything else just because of that same reason too. And sometimes because the students, if they didn't show up for class, they expected me to go over it. So then I started recording my information. So here, look at this instead, because again, you can't constantly refresh the students all the time with everything. So
right.
Yeah.
And, if I might, sort of go off from that, I'm in the middle of teaching a 40-hour class now. I just finished yesterday, the first 3 days, and then next weekend. And, the learning experience, I just hope all your people in varying stages that are listening to this, some are, maybe been practicing for a long, long time, but I just do think that taking classes is just something that keeps you alive and always growing. And that's why I'm still working on 10 people a week, and sometimes it's a little bit hectic for me, but it's just the joy of always learning, not only from taking classes, but every single client I try to work on differently and look at as a distinct individual, and just keeps you young and alive.
And what I noticed about education too, like continuing education, it kind of gets that fire back into you too. So when you start getting in that rut and
Yeah, whether it's taking classes or getting new books or videos, I understand in our economy, a lot of people I talk with, their practices are down, but I have never taken a class that didn't pay for itself in short order, because you come back enthusiastic, it just rubs off on your clients, you do new techniques, and you get the people coming and having one session and saying, wow, I've never had that before. And they come back and they refer their friends. One of the things that I really try to talk to most of my students about is that so many people try to compete being better at some sort of broad general picture of what they think massage or body work, whatever they're in, is. And I think they're afraid of stepping outside of that little comfort zone, and they're competing against a huge mass of people. And better really means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And I would say, distinguish yourself, do something different. Don't be afraid of breaking out of the massage mold. One of the biggest problems I see with early students is that they've had it sort of inculcated or even indoctrinated that, quote, this is a massage. You have to work 60% on the back of the body, and it's a chess game with one move, and you turn them over, and you start on the feet, and you work your way up. And they do the same thing to virtually everybody. They get bored, and might as well be on a assembly line somewhere putting cars together. And time again, the people that I get feedback from my students saying, it was just so great to break out of that sort of straitjacket and to get people moving their bodies into different positions, not being afraid to put them in side lying, even if they're not pregnant. And, do things that people say, wow, I've never had that done before. But I think an awful lot of students have these sort of rules put down on them that are necessary in early training, I think. You need people to learn the basics before they can start breaking away from that. Always have to do the whole body. They don't communicate about doing spot work or maybe doing more than an hour massage and letting people know about the advantages of working for 90 minutes or something like that. So, I would say the thing to do is find, what you really have passion at and what you think you're really good at, and form your clients around that skill rather than trying to form your skills around what you think the clients want. The feedback I get and my students get is that what they really, really are impressed with, and when they refer other people and they come back, is what makes you different and what makes them feel different than rather just being a body that somebody's doing a routine on.
Oh, that's an awesome analogy. So awesome. And what do you think separates deep tissue massage from regular Swedish massage, would you say?
Wow. Let me say one thing about that. I think that there are considerable differences in degree. And I think one of the problems that I see with bodywork is that people think they're doing this or that. There are some technical specifics that I would say. Deep tissue work, you really don't want to be using a lot of lubrication. What deep tissue is really not how hard you're working or things like that. It's what layer of the body you're working on. So you can work very, very hard on a superficial fascia level if you want, but it's really hard if you've got that body slathered up like it's a roast being ready to be thrown in the oven. So, if you just picture trying to turn a doorknob when your hand's all greasy or wet, opening a jar when your hands are wet, you realize how a simple task is made so much more complicated if you've got a slippery surface. So, deep tissue a lot of times doesn't even use any lotion, or if we do use it, I much prefer lotion to massage. It soaks in, to oil, and you need something to grab the tissue at whatever layer you are. So that's really hard to grab your rotators, your deep rotators, piriformis, gemellis, all those deep down, if you're sliding over gluteals with a lot of lotion on there. But if you are able to sort of grab right through the gluteals without sliding over, then you can sink right down to those deep layers. So amount of lubrication, I think the general scope is a little bit more therapeutic for deep tissue, but some people just like deep work. Grabbing tissue rather than sliding over tissue, doing spot work. People come in, they have a problem and say, I've got a shoulder, I've got tennis elbow, I've got, something like that. But on the other side, if I might pontificate a little bit about me, I do think I see a big change in massage in the last 10 years, or maybe even 15 minutes, heading so much for therapeutic work that people are specializing and thinking, I only do that. And I have therapists that say, I don't do Swedish massage, I don't do relaxation massage. And I try to make it real clear to my classes that I love getting Swedish massage. I may get one after this to a spa I know. So I think that basically deep tissue and Swedish could be combined. I think Swedish people should have deep tissue skills because they really leave themselves out in the cold if they're going through a Swedish ritual and somebody has a tennis elbow, plantar fasciitis, whatever, without knowing how to shift gears and work with those. But on the other side, which I don't hear much criticism of, there's a lot of people that are as they learn more and they take workshops and shoulder workshops or whatever. There's just some great teachers out there. I hate to even mention, for fear of leaving some out, but Eric Dalton and Till Lukow, Whitney Lowe, tons of other people are doing a lot of how-to work, and then people graduate with that, and then they stop getting the enjoyment of really being nice to people and getting that benefit, so that people have to make a decision: am I getting a relaxation massage or a deep tissue massage? And I try to be nurturing in my deep tissue work as well, give people pleasure, and I'm not embarrassed at all to do that. And there's a lot of therapeutic work in relaxation and energy work, whether it's Swedish or whatever, that if you can calm a person down and make them feel good for an hour when they're stressed out or living in chronic pain, that's a heck of a gift to people as well.
Yep, definitely. And what in your bio too, you mentioned that you are starting to teach deep tissue in spas.
Yes, I find that sort of fun because spas are sort of a unique little niche of body work that has come about, somewhat lately compared to as long as I've been doing body work, and I'm not going to admit how long that's been. But they are a bit shackled by the conventions of where they are. So when I've taught at some spas in the Midwest, and they have a little different philosophy from the spas, say, on the West Coast or probably the East Coast. And so many of their clients are 1 or 2 times a year. They're off to a fancy spa, let's get a massage, and they're more inclined toward relaxation. But I taught a workshop early this year, excuse me, in Hawaii, and I had a very, very well-known spa, the Four Seasons, and just a great place. If you guys going to the Big Island near Kona, I would highly recommend that. And they do, the wraps and the aromatherapy and all of that, but they were sort of shying away from any therapeutic work. And so we did do a deep tissue workshop with them, and immediately the feedback from the students, they were getting better tips, even if they're working in a Swedish modality. They're talking to people, finding out what's going on. They are doing that grabbing of tissue and stretching tissue. Sorry, my computer just went on to say things. So do you still have me?
Yep, I still got you. Yep.
Yep. And I even got some emails from people, 2 people that went to the Four Seasons, and the people mentioned they'd had a workshop in deep tissue massage, and they said, these were in the Bay Area. Do you have anybody in this area that works like that? I can't find anybody like that. And one wrote back to the spa manager and said, this is the best I've felt in 10 years. And I went there for 1 massage, and I got 4 massages. So that's sort of what I'm doing, is to try to make spas realize that they can do quality therapeutic work. And then their massage therapists have so much more fun. They're not just doing this set, sort of cookie cutter routine with people.
Yep. And then the difference between deep tissue and Rolfing, would you say? Is there a big difference?
Yeah, I think considerably, particularly with the way the public views it. And I make it very clear when I teach that I'm not teaching Rolfing, but you can't help but teach the manual skills of whatever you do. And so with Rolfing, I really have a big emphasis upon fascia. And, most of the problems we have in the body are from short tissue, at least that we as massage therapists can work with. So I use techniques that I use in my Rolfing. I work with the tissue. I've had Rolfers sit in on my classes or assist, and they say, well, you're doing Rolfing there. And I have to sort of disagree that Rolfing, it's just brilliant. I'm just so happy that I almost stumbled onto that profession. But Rolfing is more of a philosophy and a theory of integrating the body. And one thing is deep tissue. you can't do that in 1 or 2 sessions. And so, the brilliance of the Rolfing that I find is that it's a cohesive plan to integrate the body and make it work well. Along the same lines, I still have people that come to me for Rolfing because I have a physical therapy background. I worked for 10 years at this physical therapy group, as I mentioned, working with injuries. And sometimes some Rolfers just say, no, we just put the body in order, and everything's going to put itself in order. And that's just not the reality. If you're in an auto accident, or if you overuse something in your job, or you have an athletic injury, it doesn't make much sense for me to be working on the upper body or the hips if somebody's recovering from a knee surgery and they're limping or something. So basically, Rolfing is a very wonderful philosophy and theory of putting the body in order to not just have better posture, which a lot of people think, but to move better, to be freer. A lot of things for a lot of people. The techniques I use with Rolfing are the same ones I use in a deep tissue massage in a little different way. I can spend an hour working on somebody's ankle in Rolfing, and most people for a deep tissue massage are not going to want that.
And what's the big difference between Rolfing and advanced Rolfing then?
Oh, that I'll just make sort of quick. Not that much. I do think most advanced Rolfers have been at it for a while because Ida Rolf wanted you to wait 5 years. They definitely is a plan for advanced Rolfing that brings in the theory that you don't just totally change your body. You work with it for a while, let it adjust. You can't just constantly stir the Jello and expect it to set. So you might Rolf somebody and then they'd come back for advanced Rolfing a year or two later. But to be honest, most of the Rolfers that have been at it for quite a while blend those together and use some of the advanced Rolfing techniques and the basic. For me, the biggest difference, and this is what I love that I hope your listeners or viewers think about. The biggest change for me from moving from the basic Rolfing to the advanced, the skills I learned in the workshop are incredible, but how I practice them, there's not a sharp line. As I start working with bones, and I just can't tell your people watching this how important it would be to take some workshops, get some work from people that don't limit themselves to just working on muscle or fascia. Most of the soft tissue problems we have manifest themselves at the joints. And if you can move joints, get them moving more freely, one, by working on the soft tissue, but also mobilizing joints. And I'm not talking about doing chiropractic or osteopathy, but get in there and move a shoulder around, find out where it's restricted. I would say one of the biggest changes in my class that people very often haven't had in their other classes is that I rarely work in the neutral position. I do a fair amount, but if somebody's limited, it doesn't make sense for me to try to work in a muscle in a nice softened position when it has a holding pattern. So I take it to the end range of motion, both at the joint and at the muscle. I work to try to elongate that, and it's just that wonderful feeling when the body just melts and it goes, and that muscle softens and lengthens, because that's what stays with the person. And I would say that's one of the big differences between Swedish and deep tissue. When, and my students mention this as well as my clients say, I feel great after a massage for about an hour or two, and then I'm sort of back. And I think that's because the muscles haven't lengthened. They've relaxed, but you haven't really reset anything along the neurological lines, and you haven't worked with either conscious or unconscious holding patterns. So, that's a rather circuitous answer for you.
Yep. And why do you think there's not tons of Rolfers out there?
Well, I haven't been asked that. I think it's two things. I think number one, it's an expensive and time-consuming and difficult program. When I totally changed professions, I have a background in teaching. I have a master's in English and was in the PhD program, as I mentioned, at Cal, trying probably to get into exercise prescription. I was really hesitant to get in and spend the money for that, and I had to write a 30-page paper, which I don't believe you have to do anymore. I had to get a whole lot of body work, and it was an arduous process. So there's a lot of workshops out there and sort of quick little I am this or that. I notice there's a lot of new programs out there that are named after the person who made them or some sort of thing like that. It's a quicker road. And I think the second thing is that Rolfing is in a 10-session series, and a lot of Rolfers I know make people or try to have people commit to making 10, and that's a big jump in itself. And I think Rolfing back 20 years ago had a reputation as sort of a new age walking on hot coals or primal scream type things there, that it was a little looked at as a little bit fanatical, which it is not. I mean, it's incredible the science that is coming out to document what Rolf came up with 30 years ago or 40 years ago.
And then somebody in chat asked can therapists say that they use Rolf techniques even if they haven't been going through the schooling and stuff? Or
well, some do that. I'm not real strong on that. I think a person that's going to be successful is going to be how good they are. The Rolf Institute is pretty cautious about having people say they're Rolfers if they haven't studied with the Rolf Institute. People can do that. I generally find that when people do that, all they're doing is using their elbows or making the person hurt, which I don't think Rolfing should do anyway, and it doesn't. I'm not sure when people say that when they're using Rolfing techniques any more than I'm using Swedish techniques when I do a Rolfing session sometimes, or acupressure. Things like that, P&F stretches from physical therapy or athletic massage. I would prefer that people don't say they're doing Rolfing, because I think a lot of people have a misinterpretation when they have that I got Rolfed, and I've had people do that and not. But I'm not a real militant about telling people to cease and desist on that.
Yep. And then with Rolfing, do they still get into the posture evaluation and the pictures and stuff too?
Yeah, I don't take the pictures very much anymore. I think probably I'm a little bit more skilled in determining what is holding a person up in certain areas. It's a two-edged sword. It's good in some ways for people to see the changes. On the other side, they have a tendency, there is a tendency, not everyone has this, to start judging things on a very quantifiable basis. What has this pelvis done? What's the shift? What are the shoulders? How level are things? And, so much of good body work is really much more internal. How do you feel in your body? When I got Rolfed, as I mentioned, I did a lot of athletics. I was sort of a hard body. And without even knowing it, people after my Rolfing series would say, you're just sort of softer. And I think that armor on my body also applied to my temperament. And as I softened my body and became more fluid in my movements, I think I probably became a bit less rigid in my view of life and particularly my view of myself, maybe.
Yep. And what do you think makes a successful practice that you've been so successful throughout all these years?
Well, I wouldn't say that's a great question. You're having some great questions there. What is a successful practice? My early practice, I had great rewards from. I'm not much of I'm a promoter or a businessman. I wasn't super busy, and I knew people that I'd gone to school with that were Rolfing 30 people a week outside of a year. I didn't have back when I started, there wasn't such a thing as websites. I didn't promote myself, I didn't advertise. And so I looked at myself as less than successful, but I was having a great time. And I do see this in my Rolfing friends, but I think most of the people that are talking or watching you here, probably these ideas apply to a general bodywork practice, including a Swedish practice, is that don't judge your success by how many clients you're working on. I know people that work on 30 clients a week that I don't consider to be particularly skillful body workers, and I know wonderful body workers that maybe they're a little bit of the tree falling in the forest without anyone there to hear it. But they love their work, and they're working on 8 people a week or 5 people a week, or they're wishing that they had 20 a week, and watch out what you wish for. You may get it. I don't think success really is how many people you're working on, and I think that's one thing in our society. How much money do you have? How nice a car do you have? And I know people that have what I consider to be a tremendously successful practice with 8 to 10 people a week. They do recreational work. They're parents. They take care of their kids. They spend time with their kids, and that to me is a successful practice.
And what do you think people it hampers from people from having a successful practice? Would you say?
Okay, yeah. So if we move into that, back into a little bit of how do you get people wanting to get your body work? I do think some of it is you do have to be a business person if you need to support yourself with this. But I would say the biggest thing is one thing that I covered is well, number one, not loving your work. And what makes you not love the work? I think doing a cookie cutter routine where you're just doing the same thing with every person. The people immediately pick up that they're just a bag of bones with skin over it that a person's doing a routine on. And doing a long, whether it's Swedish, Esalen, or deep tissue stroke, where you don't notice all the way along that stroke that a muscle holds tension in varying places along that muscle. And doing the same stroke on the left side, on the right side, things like that. Not being imaginative and trying to put yourself into a mold. The people with successful practices, the people that come to them think they are special. They tell their friends, this person is different. I have a friend in London that took a class of mine that was having some back problems, and I suggested she take a class on walking on people's backs with some bars on her ceiling, and she's got people beating down her door because all around London people say, well, my massage therapist, and she only does maybe 10, 15 minutes of this, but this is great to save her back instead of wearing herself out. She's distinguished herself. So the thing that I see with people coming in right out of massage school or a year into it is that they're fearful of having people think that what they're doing is out of the ordinary. And so they're competing against countless other people, and that's pretty hard. So loving your work, being an experimenter, being a problem solver, switching gears, having multiple skills. Don't think all your eggs are in one basket. If somebody comes in and you feel their holding pattern is more neurological than fascial, you need to work with that. Maybe learn some P&F stretches or crack stretches or other even more sophisticated neurological work. But on the other side, don't try to be a jack of all trades and master of none. When I look around at some of the ads and I see that a person's has a list a mile long of their skills, verging from astral travel to and psychic surgery to actual surgery or hypnosis and all that. I sort of wonder, where's their real skill in that? But I think the thing that made my practice successful, particularly taking my advanced Rolf training, is when I started working with bones. And virtually every person that comes in, I love people in my classes. I just finished this class yesterday, one third day out of 5, and we spent an hour finding ribs that were rotated and stuck. I'm not a great believer in saying the ribs are out, but virtually every person that comes in has some ribs that aren't moving. We got 24 of those guys, and we're bending, we're side bending, we're rotating, we're moving forward, and those things get stuck, sort of like a stuck drawer in an old dresser that you're pulling out, and being able to, rather than just sliding over the rhomboids, notice, oh wow, this rib here is pushing back against me, and it's stuck, and stopping there, and grabbing that rib a little bit, moving it around, and all of a sudden it sort of lets go with a sigh, and the person really, really can notice that. So sort of my own practice. I almost used to feel guilty about this. I'm a pretty affable guy, and I like people, and I used to beat myself up that I just was feeling inadequate. And I would say that would be the other thing that you're asking, what stops people from being successful, is people being way too hard on themselves. And you go to class and you always feel like everybody's getting this and you're not. I would just say be confident in what you do and don't and what you're accomplishing, and don't try to fix people or be perfect. But I think in my practice, taking my time, letting go a little bit of some of the boundary issues, and letting people know me as a human being without spilling my guts out and all of that. The line that I had when I first became Rolfing was this very clinical sort of. Almost like a psychotherapist, you don't talk about yourself. You keep the session right online. You don't have people try to escape from themselves by talking about their movie they saw last night or whatever. I think my clients sort of enjoy coming by and feeling relaxed and know that I like them as human beings genuinely. And I think that's actually helped my practice a lot. But I used to feel guilty about it. But I think that's part of a bodywork practice is to have that personal connection with people, and that's one reason I'm glad I'm not working in the physical therapy world now. Not that physical therapists aren't nice people and have nice connections, but I have a much deeper connection one-on-one with people when I'm working in my own home. And probably most people come by to see my dog and my cat as well. So it's a nice, relaxed thing. I actually work out of my home. Is one of the models that I had. I have a nice separate place where I'm not having people walk through my kitchen or anything like that. But I think there is this tendency in massage the last few years to be try to join hands with the medical profession, and this very serious and we're only here to look at X-rays and do all this. And I think a lot of people with their private practice that I know are successful really have warm relationships with their clients, including keeping proper boundaries.
And I think massage in general is just massage is trying to find itself in a way too, because it's so broad.
Oh, definitely. And
Yeah.
It's interesting, since I do teach internationally, to see the differences between different countries. Poland is way, they're back 20 years. I taught there earlier this year for the second time. They're 20 years behind us as far as the general population acceptance of massage. Great Britain is coming along now. In some ways a little bit more differently, but very more quickly they're catching up to the United States, and there's a lot more therapeutic massage in Great Britain now than there is in America, I would say. A lot of people do relaxation massage, but people there are finding that, I get something done a lot better here than waiting in line at the queue in their healthcare system. And so a lot of them are doing spot work. I love teaching over there. It's quite a circus when I teach over in Ireland. In the United States, I see so much good that it's accepted more and more as a way of helping people, and I think that's really good. But I do think I'm a little disheartened by the sort of lack of warmth in the way some massage is being taught in workshops and things like that. I will say that the quality of touch of our American therapists is excellent, no matter what training they have. And I think a lot of it's because they learn Swedish. I think Swedish is probably the... Oops, we're still here?
Yep, you're still here.
Probably that Swedish massage is... the best way to learn massage. You learn layers of the body, you learn body mechanics, all of that. So got a little sidetracked on what I went with the Swedish, but I think the skills of our therapists here are great. I do see a little bit of confusion about who am I as a therapist, and people feeling, probably covered this enough, a little bit guilty that they're not this and they're not that, and that I have to fit into some mold. One quick statement about how it's accepted in the United States. This study came out 5, 6, 7 years ago. Consumer Reports polled something like 15,000 of their readers on what helps you the most for fibromyalgia, osteoarthritis, neck pain, and back pain. And they rated, I think about 12 modalities from, surgery, chiropractic, physical therapy, home exercise programs, acupuncture, and in all four categories, deep tissue massage was number one or number two. And when you consider that people are paying out of their pocket for deep tissue massage, we're often going to chiropractors 3 times a week sometimes. I think it's a pretty good testament to the way the people here are accepting that.
Yep. And then I myself, when I went through massage school, we're taught a cookie cutter thing. But we're told a routine, and we had to follow it too. And it's so hard to branch out. I just remember I was just so frustrated while I was going through massage school. And
yeah, well, that's my main thing is break out of that mold. And you have to have something to break out too, though. You can't say I'm going to try to be something different. That's where you take workshops. I feel bad. A lot of people live hundreds and hundreds of miles away from a workshop, and they have to go rent a hotel room and all that stuff. That's unfortunate. There are a lot of good videos out there, and one thing you do is just go to really good accepted body workers and get that work yourself. And I go to my Rolf teacher, and he charges $300 a session. And it's worth it. Number one, I get some great body work, but what I really get out of that is every time I walk out of there, I'm working differently on my clients. And once that gets ingrained in you, there you go. Yeah, the cookie cutter is a killer. If you want to be working at this for a long time and really enjoy it, that's just not the way to go. A few things I would mention, just my own prejudices, I suppose. One of the things that I see that hampers people, this is a bit, you may not agree with everybody, is that I think because of the spa world particularly, and because of all the lawyers that have, the lawsuits, the fear of sexual harassment and things, one thing, a huge difference I know in the United States from the other places I teach is this almost, over emphasis upon draping. And I have a physical therapist friend that he won't go to certain spas. He spends, he says a quarter of the massage is spent wrapping me up in swaddling clothes. We absolutely have to take care of our clients. Their modesty issues. But for me, draping is warmth and modesty. And I think we sort of project a lot into our clients, and it's become almost this feedback loop that spas, where people very often get their first massages, put so much emphasis on draping that people think that's the way draping is. And I actually try to promote myself, but I think it's an important issue. In the last issue of Massage and Bodywork, I have a little column of questions and answers, and I sort of take that draping philosophy to task, because tons, and I wonder, Ryan, what you do. A lot of body workers that I know, including massage therapists, tell people, I can certainly drape you, we'll do the conventional, have your clothes off underneath that, but I like to move you around. I like to put you in awkward positions to stretch this muscle and that muscle. And if you'd like, I would prefer that you wear your underclothes. Or you wear underclothes under a drape, so you're not so fastidious or have to worry about that. But I think an awful lot of my clients just immediately say, "Oh, thanks, God, I feel so constrained there." And we learn how to properly drape, and that's really important. But you're doing piecework. You work on an arm, and then you cover that up, and it's goodbye for the rest of the massage. And the work that I do with Rolfing, and what I try to teach to my students, is that our work is to get a continuity across basic body parts. So we don't just work on a leg after working on the posterior pelvis or on the anterior pelvis and then working on the quads. You want movement across those body parts. You want to, when you're working on a leg, you want to be able to pull on that leg or push that leg and feel, how's that transmission of energy through there? Is there a block at the SI joint, or is the spine caught up there? And if you've got a person all wrapped up, it's like hello and then goodbye once you got them wrapped up, and you're doing a paint by the numbers thing, and that's what stops you and puts you into that cookie cutter mentality. So I do hope that would be one of my major things I would tell people is, come to grips with your views of draping, and realize that as important as it is, it does not suit itself to all sorts of bodywork, and it has some limitations, and those limitations are negotiable with your clients. So really, really, I mean, that's another thing. I tell a quick story. Class I took a long time ago. I'm not a very good draper because in Rolfing you wear underclothes. And that goes in varying degrees. You can have a woman wear a jog bra or a swimming suit. You can have people wear gym shorts. But I was reading an evaluation from a woman who'd been very glowing in her reports, and at the end they said, "Is there anything that you'd like to add to this?" And this hit me pretty well because the rest of the evaluation had been quite good. And she said, "Art is absolutely," this is written down, "the worst draper, excuse me, that I've ever seen." And I said, "Oh, I'm guilty." But then she went right on after that, and she said, "And it was so freeing for me to see good body work being done. Without this obsession about draping, letting go of that, and moving into what am I trying to accomplish with this body," which is the big difference between cookie cutter massage and intuitive or problem solving massage. The cookie cutter massage, the emphasis is upon strokes, and on, I think, more sophisticated body work, the emphasis is upon what do I want to accomplish there. And so some of these things that we learn in early massage, using a lot of oil, draping everybody up like the mummy, things like that, are counterproductive for accomplishing certain things. Now we have to put that in a proper perspective. We're not, we don't want our clients feeling uncomfortable, but letting go of the shackles, the things we learned early on. I have people that look like a deer in the headlights when we start talking about working on the anterior neck. Getting our hands in there, working on the scalenes and the sternocleidomastoid, and maybe even longus coli, things like this, because we get these early fears in our early training of never work on the neck, never go near the sacrum, don't do this, don't do that, and those things, even if we, on a rational level, move on from that, on an unconscious emotional level, we don't feel safe doing that.
Yep. And it's my understanding you have a lot of fun in your classes?
I don't know if my clients do. I like to think so. I think learning, you and I chat a little bit. I mean, I've taken bodywork classes where the teacher is up on a pedestal and very, very serious and walking around like it's a funeral. And our bodywork, I'm terribly serious about bodywork, but it doesn't mean it can't be fun.
Yep.
And same with my clients. My clients and I laugh a fair amount if something comes up. I think it's the best way to learn. The biggest hindrance I see to learning in my classes is anxiety. And so, lightening up, telling a few jokes. If you can laugh at a joke, you can start laughing at yourself. And probably most cognizant, and I get a fair amount of feedback from my students about that they really felt that they learned a lot because they weren't anxious. And I'm sure you. I mean, when we've talked, you're quite a jovial guy.
Yep.
I love it when people laugh and I say something. I think it's tremendously important when you learn to come in there with a light heart. And I used to be a psych major. That was my bachelor's. And all these studies indicate that anxiety is a tremendous detriment to learning. And so I see people being way too hard on themselves. And I'm probably aware of that because I made a big shift when I went into body work. And I was not a particularly good body worker. I mean, I think I'm pretty good now. I don't believe in getting a bunch of ego in one's body work one way or the other, but I beat myself up in classes. We'd be doing this complicated body reading in my Rolf training, and I'd look at the teacher talking about the pancreas appearing to be rotated 3 degrees to the left as they're looking through 18 layers of tissue, and all the students would nod, and I'd be my eyes would be widening, and I just didn't understand it. And I realized that there's a tendency sometimes for teachers to put themselves up that they're really great at this, and look what I can do, and that can be overwhelming. And I'm quite fallible, And I think that comes across in my teachings as well. You just realize all these teachers that you have, they did just what you did. They started from scratch, and the reason that they're really good at what they do, in all probability, was that they didn't just rest on some early teaching and try to just get by. They tried to be the best that they could be, not necessarily in competition with everyone else out there in the field, but just every single client just doing the very best work you could do. And then letting go of it. I'd say another thing in my early practice, particularly with Rolfing, where, as you mentioned, we had pictures, and I'd look and I'd sort of want to give a recall notice that this poor person is coming in here, and I'm grinding away, and I'm not seeing what happened. But then sometimes those people that I wasn't seeing the changes were the ones that would get back and say they had the most profound changes. So all you can do is do the very best work you can do, and then let go of it. Don't judge yourself from the work. You'd be surprised how much you're helping people. That's the thing. I just have so many people that have gone the Western medicine road, and not just me, my cohorts, the people I work with, the students, that just have such gratification from the appreciation and the help they give people.
Yep. And in the beginning, when you first started out, was it a little bit harder for you because you're a male then? I mean, because I know I hear from some males it's sometimes harder. And
good question. I think definitely males that are working in the relaxation massage area and in spas have a harder time. I poll them with my students. And if you're working in a spa, most women coming in are going to prefer being worked on by a woman. If they have a choice, they're going to say, I prefer a woman. A lot of them have had bad experience here and there. And to be quite honest, most men, unless they're really coming in for therapeutic work, it's pretty enjoyable being worked on by a woman. I'm not talking about sexual at all. There's a woman's touch, and I think a lot of men need to cultivate that nurturing touch. But for me, I'd say it helped me because of just the other side, and I don't think it's in any way true. I know fantastic women. Very, very specific body workers. I had some shoulder surgery 10 weeks ago, and I have two different physical therapists I'm seeing that are just fantastic, and they get in there with their hands and they work deeply. But as a Rolfer, there's a false idea that it's really deep and hard work. So I want a man that's strong enough to do this, and strength really isn't that big an issue in deep tissue. It's using your body weight. It's sinking to the layer you want. So in some ways, it can help your practice. In some ways, it can hinder it. Almost always, the men that work in a spa, I find, have a little harder time keeping a full schedule.
And did you, I think it was a year or two ago on Dr. Oz, he had a Ralpher on. Did you see that at all?
I did just very quickly. That's true. Yeah, it was on Oprah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know him. He's a great teacher and a great body.
Oh, you know that person then?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Oh, awesome.
Yeah, and the thing is that Dr. Oz sort of took over, and as needed to, a TV show had to be, a lot of levity and all that, and I wasn't particularly impressed with how that segment gave a picture of what Rolfing is. But it's pretty hard. Rolfing's a lot of different things to a lot of different people.
Yep. And do you see Rolfing evolving or changing in the near future at all, or?
Well, I mean, it's always. I don't see like a near future that there's going to be some sort of a shift. More and more Rolfers are adding to the classic Rolfing by doing craniosacral work, visceral manipulation. I myself and most of the Rolfers I know have been around for a while. We do a lot more work with bones. I just love getting into somebody's neck and finding two vertebrae that are sort of stuck with each other. Instead of having to make a big adjustment and snap it, now that I know how bones articulate, and I teach all this even in my very early massage classes, and working one joint right next to another and understanding how bones move and just sort of ratcheting them around like the stuck door idea I was mentioning, that you just move in a little slower way and all of a sudden that floor starts sliding again. So I think Rolfing is continuing to evolve. There's been a considerable amount of interest in the Western medicine now in fascia, where even 10 years ago, nobody was interested in it. We have fascial conferences now with orthopedists coming and things like that. We're finding that there's a transmission that people weren't even aware of, electrical energy, all through fascia, which goes along with Tom Meyer's work and the Rolfing work as well. That there's so much more to the fascia than what we realize. When I took anatomy 25 years, no, close to 30 years ago at Cal, the first thing we had to do when we were working with cadavers was to get all that darn fascia out of the way so we can figure out what these muscles are doing. So everything was sort of Newtonian levers and pulling on this and that. So and they're finding a lot of substantiation to these theories of Rolfing that before were sort of looked at as a little bit airy-fairy, I think.
Yep. And then I know you've written a lot of articles in the past. What kind of articles have you written and stuff?
Well, I try to keep away. I have several. That are specific. How do you refine your touch? My major interest is touch. There's, as I say, these great other teachers that I've mentioned, and there's tons of other ones out there. I sort of leave the specifics to them, and I certainly cover a lot of specifics, but that's not my major thing. So some of my articles are longer in Massage and Bodywork magazine, 2 and 3 issues long because they're 5 or 6 pages long. I do have a rather long chapter in a book that's come out on fascia, but lately I've been doing every issue questions that I see people coming in that come to me with questions about their bodywork practice. How much do we put into the emotional issue with people? Are we playing amateur psychologists? The draping issue. What about pain? A lot of people have a very strong misapprehension misconception that deep work has to be painful, and that's one of my sort of crusades that it doesn't. And thank God I've learned that. It took my first 10 years of doing body work to overwork and wear myself out and have my clients levitating off the table. I think being Rolfer enabled me to persist in bad bodywork habits. Rolfing's supposed to be intense, and I work half as hard and I get twice as much done as I used to. Bodywork not only doesn't need to be, it shouldn't be painful. There's enough pain in people's lives, and you can get a heck of a lot done, without grinding on somebody. I mean, I think as far as specific skills, the biggest thing I see is that it's not so much how hard you push that makes it painful, it's how fast you're working. So, this is another thing we cover a lot in class. It's really, who are you as a human being? My early 10 years, I worked too hard. Because I'm a pretty generous person, I like to do the best I can. And a lot of doing good body work, and this is an important issue, is not only knowing what to do, it's knowing what not to do, so that you can skip the superfluous work, those vacant strokes, those cookie cutter strokes, and have more time to slow down and really do excellent work on the areas that need it. Every massage, try to find 1, 2, maybe no more than 3 areas that, how can I have this person walk off the table and be in a different state and really notice a difference there. So a lot of the pain issues that I see have to do with people trying to do too much and butting heads with the body rather than working with the body. So, I have a lot of those articles. I'm doing one on stroke direction that will be coming out in the next issue. That an early thing that I learned in my, there I go again, in my early massages, always work toward the heart. And there's, of course, good reasons for that. But I've checked on with every physical therapist, orthopedist, tons of people, that doesn't mean you have to feel guilty if you're working in the other direction. And there's tons of advantages to working in the other direction that you can, if you're working distally on the legs, you can decompress a knee, you can decompress a hip, you can get on an arm, you can get that arm dropping out of the body so that whole shoulder drops and everything's sort of hanging there like a loose spaghetti or something like that. And it just doesn't make sense to be always working toward the body and stroking up and compressing compressing muscles, and most of the work we do is to try to lengthen muscles, and it doesn't make sense to try to shorten them. So, you know, I like those short articles, but I also like the long ones. My book, I figure, is enough for me to go into the details of how to work with fascia and what are some of your goals there.
And what kind of injuries do you see that therapists are having?
Oh, good one. Yeah, well, I think the main cause for therapists is overworking, either too hard, too fast, or too many clients without a break. You know, we get into our money issues. But the biggest things I see are hand and wrist injuries. I'm death on thumbs. Thumbs are a wonderful tool. Don't wear them out working on hands and feet and trying to, you know, just wear people down with your thumbs. It's not enough time to go in here now, but very, very important there. The other thing I see is a lot of shoulder injuries from people lifting their shoulders up and working with their muscles, in large part because they're standing too close to their clients, and so they're not able to extend their joints and use their body weight, and so they're using muscles. And that can happen anywhere. But the shoulders are a big problem. Low backs from improper foot placement. I'm not a big believer in having your feet parallel to your body, because you can't push forward that way. If you're going to just picture this standing in front of the door, you're not going to have your feet parallel to the door. You're going to have one foot back and one foot forward, and that gives you some power to lean in there. And then when you have done a fairly long stroke, instead of straining your low back to stand up, you have that front foot to push you back. So body mechanics are tremendously important, but you know, you can give people perfect body mechanics to run headlong into a wall, and they're still going to you know, have some problems. So I find the psychologically emotional people trying to work too hard, trying to please people by sacrificing their body, that's as much as the biomechanics as far as why people get injured. But the hands are the big ones. That'll end your career. You get carpal tunnel, you get your arthritis of the thumbs, or fingers where you can't do that work with the fingers. So great advocate of using knuckles, fists, forearms, things like that. And
then since you live in California, how's the regulation going there then?
You know, I'm not the best one to ask about that. It's certainly in a state of flux, and as a Rolfer, I'm certified through a different channel. I do know a lot of massage therapists are having a hard time finding proof of their old classes. And like any bureaucracy, I mean, it's fine to have some control over people and make sure that we don't have you know, amateurs out there. I'm hearing a lot of disgruntled people that are having a really hard time and having to take a lot of expensive courses to pick up hours for ones that they've lost track of and things like that. It's a tough thing. The administrators need to have some proof. But from a political standpoint, this is probably not super popular with some people, that I think we need some standards. But a lot of these standards are driven by politics, and a lot of those politics are driven by the large schools that want people to take 750 and 1,000 hours before they're even out there. And that isn't the way I learned. And I know fantastic therapists that when they take a couple hundred hours and get out and start working, that's where you really learn, and then you take the workshops. There's no simple answer, because some people will do that and they won't continue their education. But they're going to be out of the field anyway. They're not going to like their work. Their clients aren't going to come back. So a lot of you know, unhappiness about the logistics of how to solve that. And I wish I had a solution, but I don't.
And where do you see yourself in the future for bodywork? Do you ever see yourself retiring, or?
Yeah. I probably will do it till I drop. Because I like it so much. I don't need, from a financial standpoint, certainly don't want a bunch of people calling me for free work, but I give a lot of sliding scales now. My book and my video provide a decent income, and you know, I lead a simple life. So I love working. As long as I love working, I'm going to keep working. I grew up with a mentality. I had a professor for a father, and that was back in the 50s. That's what everybody did. You worked till you were 62 or 65, and you retired and sit in a rocking chair. And it took a while for me to realize that I don't want it, but I love my work. You know, the thought of winning the lottery would be a little bit frightening for me, because deal with that. So I'm not rich, so I do need some income, and I sort of look at my Rolfing work as fun money now. So I plan to keep out there harassing people as long as I can.
Do you plan to do a lot more workshops too and stuff?
Yeah, I'm doing that more and more. I love teaching. I'd say the number one thing I love is doing the work with the people. But I'll tell you, massage therapists are about the easiest people in the world to teach. They're generous, alive, and enthusiastic, and I look forward to virtually every class every class that I come to. Students are fantastic. It keeps me, if not young, not growing old quite so quickly.
And are you going to do any more DVDs or books at all?
Oh God, I hope not. I still think about it. Some people. One thing that I think about is that my DVDs there's 11 hours of them. There's 7 of them, and I really go into an awful lot of detail about the proper mechanics of how to work, and what are some ideas you're trying to accomplish in the body instead of doing strokes. So they're by nature a bit piecemeal, a bit episodic, split up. And the one problem I see is people, I generally get very good, people seem to like the workshops, but they go back to particularly a spa setting, and it's, well, how do I work all this great fun stuff into a cohesive, integrated deep tissue massage? And I do think about writing a book or doing a video on that, but who knows? Maybe I'll slow down a little bit and do that. Whenever I have a workshop called Integrated Deep Tissue Massage that does that. It's actually a 3-day workshop on how to get a 1 hour and a half massage, where we really clarify the goals for each section. And what are some strokes to do this? But the strokes I show in this class, we pretty much have to have taken my other classes, because I've taught it to people that haven't taken them, and they're so wrapped up on learning how to unwind ribs or how to properly use their knuckles and things that we get a little sidetracked. So that hasn't worked super well. If people have had my other classes, it works quite well. But there's a real skill to having a continuity in a massage, and so maybe I'll do that sometime. I mean, just for example, if you're going to work on the back, what are your goals for the back? How do you integrate the shoulder to the back? How do you get the scapula moving over the back before you start working on somewhere else? If you're working on the shoulder girdle, your 2 major goals is to free the scapula from the ribs and then free the humerus from the scapula. What are the muscles that do that? So, the integrated massage, one has to, and you're certainly not saying that one needs to take my course or him, one has to really think about prioritizing what are you trying to accomplish here. Do I want to separate the legs from the pelvis because they're tied up at the upper hamstrings or the quadriceps or the IT band? You need to form those ideas and then go from there. And a lot of people just start working and they don't get down to the problems until they're halfway through the massage, and then there isn't enough time. So having a fluid massage is really important. If I don't do it, I hope somebody else does.
And what is the best way for people to get a hold of you then?
Oh gosh. I try to keep up, but I am pretty busy in that area. If somebody does try to get hold of me, please email me again if you don't get back. A lot of questions are so long that I actually take 20, 30 minutes writing back, and I say, I don't have time now, and then I forget to answer. Probably reach me through Riggs Workshops, RIGGS WORKSHOPS @gmail.com, and I'll try to get back to you fairly soon. I do travel, and I'm off and about, sometimes with spotty internet, and I live with my great Midwestern guilt fear that I don't answer phone calls or emails. So if you don't hear back, write to me again. It isn't that I'm trying to shine you on. I try to get back to everybody, but I am pretty busy.
Okay, perfect. So it's definitely been a blast tonight, man.
I can't wait when we're off here. I'm going to get back and chat with you some more. You're a delightful guy to talk with.
Okay.
Enjoy our just a little preliminaries here. So,
yeah. Okay, thanks everybody too. Thanks for tuning in.
Okay, thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Okay.